Hey everybody, it's another week. It's Breaking Down Security. I'm Brian. This is Miss Berlin, Mr. Betcher.
What up?
Hello.
Hello. Take two. But you didn't hear my cool opening that I had on the other side.
Tell them take two.
Look,
no,
it's
they weren't here for that.
It's a behind the curtain kind of thing. You got to have that kind of stuff. It keeps it real, you know. So, yeah, I hit the X button when I was recording with Audacity, and that stops recording apparently. So. Thankfully, we only lost about a minute of recording, not the whole damn thing. So, Mr. Betcher, how are you doing this week?
Not bad.
Must be nice because, you know, it's the summertime. It's going to be 4th of July. All the bad guys are going on vacation to the beach and stuff, so you won't have to worry about malware and ransomware.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They usually take off in the summer.
Yeah.
And just let us have a free ride.
Yeah.
You know?
Very cool. Yeah.
Because here in IR.
All the Canadian malware is taking a break today.
Right. Oh, that's right.
Canada Day.
Yeah. Happy belated Canada Day, because this probably will go out tomorrow on the 2nd. But happy Canada Day to all the Canadians out there. So, so what you're saying, Mr. Betcher, is I can click on this link right here to this Nigerian prince. It's legit this time of year, so I should be able to get my monies.
Well, even if you do, they won't get to it for a while. So you won't be seeing that extra income for another, month or so. I
need that. I just got my my Tesla 3 order in, so
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, get that in 3 to 5 months. So yeah,
so jealous.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we probably should bring our guest on because he's probably bored to tears. He's been in our green room
He's
here.
falling asleep.
Yeah, he fell asleep. And he's in a thunderstorm, so we don't know how long we're going to have him for. So he's in the St. Louis area. So you might know him from such, conferences as nolacon. He's also the founder of CyDefe Labs. I'd like to welcome Mr. Raymond Evans to the show. Welcome, Raymond.
Hello. How is everybody this evening?
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yep. So before we get to our topic, I don't know if you would like to, but we have, we like to ask new guests who've never been on the show about their background, and wanted to find out how you got your start and how you're the founder of CyDefe Labs. So you run your own company. How does that work, and how did you get to that point?
So in St. Louis, we ran a competition called Hack the Arch. We ran it for about 2 or 3 years, and through getting sponsorships and whatnot, I got the interest of some individuals at Cybrary, actually, who I'm partnered with.
Okay.
So you can't go directly to CyDefe Labs. All of our products are in the Cybrary marketplace.
Okay.
And if you want to do some of our items, such as today I just added some ICS packet analysis challenges that were provided to me by Dragos Inc.
Mm-hmm.
Which, thank you, Dragos Inc. for that. Very awesome. You would have to go through Cybrary, and then we have an API set up to kick people into our platform.
Okay.
And then all of their scores get reported back to the Cybrary platform and tossed onto their profiles there, which is very cool.
Okay.
But we were, myself and my main developer who helped me build the Hack the Arch platform, which is what we run everything off of. Him and I were just really passionate about it and just kept building the platform and building it until somebody wanted to partner with us. After they saw all of our hard work, and after we proved ourselves a little bit with running CTFs in the St. Louis area, and then also our CTFs down at nolacon.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very nice. So you're a regular runner of CTFs. We're going to ask you about that in a little bit, but I have another topic I'd like to come up with. So you've been doing pen testing and red teaming all your career?
So I originally started off in the defensive side, and it was actually kind of funny how I got into the pen testing portion of it. We got some Burp Suite licenses, and my organization said, hey, we need somebody to create training for Burp Suite. And I made a slideshow, and they said, okay, well, now you're our web pen tester.
Oh, wow.
And then I was like, oh, man, okay, I guess I have to learn all this. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Right. You got voluntold.
What I had to learn because of being sent on different pen testing jobs.
Very nice. Yeah, you get voluntold if you hey, I can make you a slideshow. Well, you end up being the one running the thing. So, very cool. So we want to talk to you about the CTF stuff because that's really on our mind right now. But I also wanted to discuss some OSINT stuff. So, one of the big things I think most companies don't realize that they do is they like to link a lot of information. And one of the best ways that you can find out information about something, people's internal network, if it's really incorrectly configured, or their external footprint, is by DNS enumeration. So we've got a couple of links in our show notes here on ways to gather that stuff. The harvester. Oh yeah, I think we learned about that one in 504. How damaging is the ability to, query somebody's DNS in a pen test? How damaging is that?
So for me, as a web pen tester, using a site like DNS Dumpster, which awesome site. If you want non-attribution DNS enumeration, DNSdumpster.com is fantastic. You just enter in a domain, and it gives you every single subdomain, their maintenance records, mail records, all of that. Then it puts it into a pretty little picture, a little graph of how everything's connected, what servers are housing what with their IPs and everything. It's beautiful. If you're trying to have a graph for a report for a client, tossing that image right in that report, they think it's the most amazing thing in the world. But using a tool like DNS Dumpster, that gives me more avenues of attack. Individuals will forget about subdomains that they have. And so they'll say, hey, splat this domain, which means, of course, everything in all subdomains is free to attack.
Right.
And they'll have a subdomain of some mail service from 5 years ago that they completely forgot about. That, hey, look, it's vulnerable to SQL injection.
Or it doesn't have two-factor auth.
Yeah, you all moved over to something like Office 365 OWA, but you still have this old mail platform sitting over here that I just got into and have a bunch of historical information from you now.
Right. So, do you just pull the DNS records, or do you look at the who is or anything like that for, purposes of being able to say, yes, that is actually owned by that organization? I mean, how deep do you go when you're doing DNS enumeration in that respect?
So it's really important to really dig into the DNS and do things like who is and whatnot, because a company may say, hey, you're allowed to pen test our server, right? Or you are allowed to pen test our website or whatever. But they don't always have the right to give that permission because of things like cloud computing these days. I've come across a good many web servers that I've been told, hey, yeah, if you can execute code on this, fantastic, go for it. And then I go in and I'm pulling DNS information, and it turns out, oh, hey, this is actually running on Amazon servers. And I don't have permission from Amazon to execute code on their servers.
Right. Okay. So, Ms. Berlin, you did your defensive security handbook. So between you and Raymond, him being the red guy and you being the blue person in the scenario here, how would you protect against these kinds of attacks?
Oh, where do I start? So, like Raymond said, if people leave stuff online that they shouldn't for a very long time and forget about it. So, asset management's always really super important, especially about stuff that's on the internet. Mm-hmm. So knowing everything that you have out there that you need to protect, and then logging against all of it. I just had an argument with somebody the other day about the importance of logging DNS queries, which I know is different than OSINT DNS stuff, but a lot of people don't do that. And I mean, you can really tell a lot about what's going on in your environment based on the queries either coming from or going to if you have your own DNS server.
So what were some of the arguments for and against?
Against, none of their arguments were very good. I think it was just laziness and wanting to point fingers at people.
Right.
So hopefully they don't listen to this and know who they are. Otherwise, I might get fired. Argument 4 is, you can really tell, like, because different strains of malware do like domain generation algorithms, and you can tell that from DNS logging, and you can really tie a lot to threat lists and other types of activity based on what they're querying from internally, and you can tie other attacks to external queries of your DNS, which is harder, I think. But
right. So
it all aids an investigation when you're doing any type of response or incident investigation stuff.
Right. So when you said that somebody is querying your DNS, I guess I can query anybody's external DNS and use it as name resolution, right?
And you shouldn't be able to.
Well, I mean, okay, so
that would mean it was openly recursive, and you should not be able to use anybody's DNS server to query anything.
Right. Raymond, does that ever happen? I mean, has everybody's got their DNS set up properly?
Just gonna leave it with that answer.
I guess that's painfully obvious that not everybody. So open recursive, being able to, so letting other people use your external DNS servers to query and look for other websites is not a good thing.
And to authoritatively give an answer.
Right.
Like you can have like an ISP, and that DNS server is going to just forward its request on and say, "Hey, root server, what's it supposed to be?" A lot of people will set it up so their DNS server is acting like a root server when it's not supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that a lot. And then I've also had where people have set up open DNS servers, and they just get hammered. Like that's another reason why you log that kind of traffic, because you can see in any kind of log management that it's like half of China shouldn't be using your on-site DNS server to query the internet. Right.
So you're not necessarily logging to ensure that you have, that people are making, that it works. You're logging to make sure that like somebody from Russia is not able to do it. Anybody who makes queries should be from your internal IP address range or your DMZ in this case.
Right.
Right. So if you start finding, DNS requests from, China or, Upper Mongolia, I apologize.
And when you house your own DNS, like you're way more susceptible, especially if it's on site, you're way more susceptible to like DOS.
Right.
On those, like, do you really want all of your name resolution to stop working because you just decided you wanted to host your own DNS?
Right. Right. And one of the other things that we mentioned when you're doing a pen test or something, the first thing they do is they query to see if the DNS is working. The second one is they try to do a zone transfer.
Yep.
So being able to do a zone transfer is bad and should only be done between other DNS servers. But what happens if, I'm sure, Raymond, it's not hard to set up a DNS service on a local box and then, act like you're a DNS server. How am I wrong in this?
I don't do too much DNS poisoning.
Right.
I've never, my management's never wanted me to do DNS poisoning in the environment.
Never had to get to that point, I imagine.
No, I haven't had to.
Yeah. You mean you've already owned them left and right before you even got to that point?
Pretty much. There's so much out there in the wild to exploit quickly that there's no need to set up DNS poisoning.
Okay, so pause there. Let's say you do go to the site, you do you're a defender, and you're trying to protect your company. You go to the site, you plug in your domain, and you get a list, like a long list of URLs. Now, what do you do next? As someone who's trying to protect their company, what can you find out? Do you just plug all those into Nessus and scan away? I mean, is there something free that you can do?
Turn them all off.
Well, you can't turn off all your DNS entries. No, I think you have to enumerate those, right? You do have to run some kind of scans to see if they still exist. I'm assuming that's where Mr. Betcher's trying to go with this. But
they may exist, but you want to try and find out what others can find out.
Right.
So you may know a secret URL that maybe your client uses, and it's pretty secure, right? You may know about it, but maybe there's something that you don't know about.
Right.
I really like everything on DNS Dumpster. Like it lets you get the HTTP headers. It'll tell you what the website's made from, at least what like the web server is that it's running on.
Right.
I ran it against our companies, and like it'll tell you what sites have two-factor auth if it goes directly to Duo.
Right.
Yeah, I highly suggest using that during pen tests. It's fantastic.
Now, okay, so Raymond, why would you use something like DNS Dumpster versus just using a query tool, like Dig or something like that on a system? Why is it necessary to use an external third party to do DNS queries?
Non-attrib. So if an organization knows I'm coming in to do a pen test and they're watching for weird things, I can use DNS Dumpster to completely avoid them seeing me.
Okay. So it's much like Shodan or whatever, that it's going to go ahead and do the scanning for you versus you doing it yourself and being caught potentially.
Yep. And, it'll prevent them from blocking any IP address that I may be coming from. Okay. Especially if the organization wants me to come from like a certain area of a network, say they want me to sit internal or something like that. Like, hey, what can we see happens if, you set up internally as like a rogue device or something like that.
Right.
I want to prevent them from seeing me as much as possible.
Right. Okay. So I have one other question before we move on, unless somebody else has other issues. So in Europe, there's this little thing that most people may have heard of called GDPR, and there was some issue with who-is records inside of DNS records for domain registrars and stuff, and they're starting to censor those or mask them or anonymize them so that information can't be shared. Is that going to make your job doing OSINT for DNS a lot more difficult in the future, or is it still going to be easy enough for you to you go into an engagement, you already know what the IP range is, so you should have some idea as to who that is. But is that going to make your job any more difficult or any less difficult?
It all depends on the engagement that I go into. A white box or a gray box versus a black box engagement. With a gray or white box, it's not going to make it any more difficult. But with a black box and them anonymizing everything, I could see some extra level of difficulty from there for me.
Yeah. I was just wondering if that was. I think it's probably only affecting like EU companies. If it's Microsoft or one of the bigger companies here in the U.S., it's not necessarily going to be anonymized, but everything overseas might. So I was just wondering if that was going to become a problem for other people. So
that, and I rarely ever deal with any kind of overseas customers. It's all American companies.
Right.
And if you want to know more about DNS, if anybody out there is confused and doesn't know too much about DNS, there's a great video out there called A Cat Explains DNS. I don't know if you've all seen that.
Thank you for bringing that up. It is the best.
A Cat Explains DNS is hands down one of the best videos for explaining DNS. And every time I have a new employee come in, and that employee doesn't understand DNS, I'm just like, sit down here for 15 minutes.
I think you blew Brian's mind.
I'm looking at a
He's
cat.
so good because he has other videos too.
I see them.
I think DNS is the best.
I see them. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. I'm hoping that they've got to be awesome because he's got this whole, crazy hairdo thing going on.
It's really good.
Looks like flock of seagulls and, punk rocker with hair and stuff. So
I was hoping that I could find him on Twitter or something.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I couldn't find him though.
He does live YouTube streams.
Okay.
Every once in a while, and he fields questions while he's like doing his cat makeup and everything.
Yeah.
And he's super responsive. He's really cool to chat with.
Yeah.
Because you'll just sit in the chat room and just type away at him, and he'll just literally, like, every single person talking to him, just respond to everybody.
Wow.
Real awesome guy.
That's pretty awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm going to definitely watch A Cat Explains DNS. I was actually expecting like a talking cat, but this is actually a human with glasses and stuff. So
it's A space cat explains DNS.
Yeah, exactly.
Not Space Cat.
Not Space Cat. I would love it if it was a space cat.
A space cat would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, it could. I mean, I guess he looks like a space. You could say he's a space cat.
You blew Mr. Betcher's mind too.
Okay.
Anyway. All right. So if we don't have any other questions about DNS, Mr. Betcher, do you have any questions? Ms. Berlin, how about you?
Well, I'm gonna have to watch the video.
DNS.
You can't.
One of my first responsibilities in my first tech job ever was updating DNS records in Bind on like a Windows 2000 server, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be Windows 2000.
Oh, you know what?
Interesting.
I just thought of something because we were talking about that list, getting a list of values in your DNS records. What happens if you find stale DNS records? Is that any useful to you by having, say, 10.100.5.20 is, old-mailserver.company.com. If that no longer exists on there, but the DNS record is still there, is that valuable to you?
I just disregard it if it's not alive anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you couldn't impersonate the server and, have it accidentally, people actually send traffic to you if it was, being timed out or somebody was trying to send something and it failed.
If I was trying to pull off some kind of DNS poisoning, maybe.
Right.
It would make it a lot easier if there was old DNS records floating around on machines trying to communicate with it.
Okay.
But again, I haven't gotten to the point where I've needed to do DNS poisoning at all.
Right on.
Once we get to that point, as companies get to that point, our jobs will be much more interesting.
Yeah, but we have never needed to get to that point, I guess. Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So Raymond, CyDefe, also is the CTF organizer, like he had mentioned, for some St. Louis-based cons and nolacon. As many of you know, or many of you who don't know, if you're a new listener, welcome. We do a DerbyCon CTF. Not the DerbyCon CTF, but we do one for a DerbyCon ticket. So to get a free ticket to DerbyCon, you have to solve our challenges, and you can win a free ticket, which is a $175 value. But they've been sold.
Commodity.
I know they've been sold out for months now. They 0.4 seconds or whatever, and I managed to grab a handful during the the F5ing of the server. So
it was maddening. I didn't get one at first, but someone else was my backup, so they got me one.
When your internet is on
I
carrier
like 4
pigeon,
things, so I'm hoping I don't have to use a ticket.
Right. Well, Betcher's internet's on carrier pigeon, so he has a lot of latency and a lot of lag.
And it's not fair. It's not fair.
Oh.
You know
what I'm saying?
Where's my small violin? Wee, 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 wee. Oh, there it is. All 3 of us. Man.
For those of us using dial-up. Come on.
This is the world's smallest symphony orchestra.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're doing ours. It will be out very soon. We actually just had a meeting that Mr. Betcher and Miss Berlin didn't come to before this podcast that we're recording to talk about that. We're setting up the infrastructure now, but I just wanted to discuss maybe some pitfalls with Raymond. Maybe talk about how he sets his is up so that we know
Give us all the answers for the next one.
Yeah. What not to do. He's coming to DerbyCon too. So if you come to DerbyCon, you got a ticket, seek him out. He's a cool dude. So so we've got five bullets here. It says CTF setup and challenges of setting up a CTF, which is exactly where we're at right now. So what are some of the challenges that you have with setting them up and how do you set them up? I mean, you must set them up the same way every time. That way it would make it easier for you.
Okay, so one of the challenges of setting up a CTF, know your audience.
Uh-oh.
I've seen a good many CTFs get set up by larger corporations. Not going to drop any names, but they would roll out to conferences with their CTF, and they would make their challenges so complex that only 2 or 3 challenges out of 50 or 60 could get solved. So number one challenge of setting up a CTF is know your audience, period.
Right.
If you're going to an InfoSec conference, you have to look at the level of people coming to that InfoSec conference. Is it DEF CON, where you have all these elite dudes coming there? Or is it a brand new B-sides in a town that literally has like 4 InfoSec people?
Right.
Yeah, and all the people that are coming out to the B-sides event are going to be college students and high school students, know your audience.
Right. Okay.
I
think a lot of people are really intimidated by CTFs in general. And like I never, like the first conference that I ever went to was second DerbyCon, and I participated in, they had a Derby Cake CTF that Mubix ran.
Okay.
And it was a lot of beginner stuff, but I really appreciated it because at the time I really didn't know a whole lot.
Right.
And that was separate from the main CTF, which was much harder. So it's the whole know your audience thing, because he welcomed people that have never done a CTF before and wanted a lot of hand holding when it came to stuff. I learned so much just by doing my first CTF that it kind of opened me up to maybe wanting to do more in the future.
Right.
So as for the CTF setup, so I take with me to conferences a kind of a crappy home router.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a Cisco router for free from a buddy of mine who works at Cisco, and I got a Cisco switch from him. So that's going to make the network a little bit less congested this next year in nolacon. And also B-side St. Louis. I'm running the CTF at B-side St. Louis.
Right on.
And then I have a crappy server blade, that I literally carry this giant server blade around with me when I go to CTFs. And it's really funny. I have a photo of me going through the streets of New Orleans with this giant server blade, and my buddy's just laughing his butt off at me. And all these people around me are looking at me like, what is that? So I don't...
You need it on a chain.
Yeah, there you go.
So I don't do any cloud hosting for my CTFs. I bring all the hardware and host everything locally.
Yeah.
Sometimes this can be good. Sometimes it can be bad. I've seen where people have wanted to play remotely. nolacon this past year, there was a lot of people that wanted to play remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So I might set up some kind of VPN tunnel into nolacon next year, so people who aren't at nolacon can VPN in and play. But yeah, that's how I set up my CTF. I use lots of Docker containers as well.
Okay.
Docker can be your best friend for CTFs. They can be your best friend because they're tiny. Right. So if you want a very robust network and you don't want to use up a lot of space on a server or something, Docker can keep that very, very small for you. Also, Alpine Linux is very nice for very small container as well.
Right.
And Docker has a great thing that you can do with them called health scripts. I'll send you a sample of what a health script looks like.
Okay.
But basically, you tell the health script to keep checking port 80 for the web page, right? And if you get a 404 response, restart the Docker container.
Like a heartbeat. It's checking for heartbeat. Right.
Yep. Also, you can do things like, hey, go in and check all the credentials, check the file hash. If that file hash of the passwords are different of like your Etsy shadow file,
right?
Rebuild the container because like that's somebody altering the assets. And this past year at nolacon, I actually had a competitor go in and change flags.
Wow.
And people raise their hand. They're like, hey, I'm entering this. This is what the flag.txt says. And it's not working. And I knew exactly who it was.
Right.
I walked over him. I said, knock it off. Because if you do that again, I'm kicking you out.
So he is the Kobayashi Maru. He was trying to burn it down after he got the flag.
Yeah. But I didn't have a health script set up to check the flag.txt.
Right.
Because nolacon's full of really awesome people, and I didn't think anybody was going to go ahead and change the flags on us.
There's always one jackass.
Always that
in the
one
group.
person.
Right. Right.
And when you're going to set up your CTF, not only I said knowing your audience before, one part of knowing your audience is what kind of CTF do you want to run?
Right.
So you have the traditional Jeopardy style CTF where you have a whole bunch of categories, and people go through those different categories and answer a whole bunch of different questions. And then you have a castle v castle style CTF that you can do, where you have two teams of people and they compete against each other. Okay. So you can literally split the room in half and you say, hey, this half of the room, this is your castle. This half of the room, this is your castle.
Right.
You have to defend your castle, and you put tokens into like an Apache web server serving up a web page with a token in it. You have a score bot go out and query that web page, right? And for every half hour that web page has that token, that team earns points.
Right.
So then that's Castle v Castle, where your two teams are fighting. And then you have King of the Hill, which is like a Castle v Castle, except it's free for all.
Right.
And then you also have just a traditional pen testing CTF, where you just have you just have a network, and you say, go break into it, right. Find the flags as you travel through it.
Yeah, we did something very similar to not that last year. We had, of course, Miss Berlin did the OSINT stuff. Mr. Betcher had a challenge or two, and I had a challenge that really sucked because it was solvable online.
It's hard. Like, see, that takes a lot of time.
I get that. Yeah, and I see so many of these CTFs here where it's like, oh yeah, just take this PCAP and analyze it. And I'm like, I don't know how to insert things like that into, I mean, obviously it's going to expand your skill set by doing these things, because you're going to get to understand how things like steganography work and, how to craft packets to do what you need to do. I guess it's I have paralysis of choice. It's like I have so many ideas that I don't know which one to do. And once you get started on one, you kind of have to move down that route, because to get it done in time is kind of painful. So, I'm still, we're still thinking about challenges to do. You might want to, if you're interested in going to DerbyCon, you might want to listen to the next, 7 or 8 podcasts, because there may or may not be a flag or two inside of our podcast here for, potential points, point value. So, what do you think about, now we're actually setting up the scoreboard, in an AWS instance, but, obviously we're not going to take this to a con. It's going to be done before the con. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions that might help us with our CTF? Other than don't suck, but
don't suck.
Yeah.
So I've hosted score servers in the cloud before when we were first standing up the hacking competitions in St. Louis.
Right.
We hosted ours on Heroku, and it was
okay.
We figured out how to do everything for free, right?
Yeah.
So we hosted it on Heroku, And then the code was on GitHub. So the code got pulled from GitHub into Heroku for the Heroku application. And then we needed SSL certs. So we made Cloudflare our DNS provider. And then we use Google Buckets, which gives you a year of free storage.
Mm-hmm.
So then we use Google
stuff everywhere.
Yeah. So then we use Google Buckets to host all of our content.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah.
So it was a piecemeal application, but it worked really well.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned, the walking the blade server around. One of the things I'm worried about is the ability for somebody to hack the point server and then add 300 points to their score or something. And so,
usually in the rules, it says that you're not supposed to touch the point server.
Rules. Okay. So, how granular do you get on the rules? I mean, obviously it's like, please don't be a dick. Don't hack the point server. That would be one. It does really depend on the format you want. If it's a free for all, obviously you're going to be hacking everybody, or King of the Hill. If it's, castle versus castle, you don't want to. Are there any kind of guidelines for like castle versus castle, or
So for Jeopardy style, I usually say, hey, don't attack other players and don't attack the score server.
Right.
And then for Castle v Castle, I usually set up like a VPN tunnel where everybody VPNs in through one red team box on each team.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't protect your credentials for that, then that's your own fault.
Right. Yeah.
So like you can attack the other team's platform, their jumping off platform.
Mm-hmm.
But usually people would get into that platform and just change the VPN information, and then, hey, the other team can't get in now.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, the only time really that I lay down the don't attack other players is the Jeopardy style.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I was, I was thinking about, some crypto challenges. I was thinking about doing a vulnerable VM, but, and I've heard you learn a lot by trying to do a vulnerable VM too. And the guy who's running the scoreboard for us, he's like, those, you got to learn how to not suck with those, just do what you would normally not do as a blue teamer on the vulnerable VMs. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's great. I guess I could just, figure out how to load an old kernel and, try to find a copy of Debian 6 or something that we could use that's probably got all kinds of vulnerabilities on it. So you've run a number of CTFs. Do you suggest starting with a vulnerable version of an OS, or do you take a up-to-date version and make it vulnerable?
So how I do the vulnerable VMs is I go to ExploitDB,
right,
and I look through the different exploitation white papers, and I see exactly how individuals exploit that.
Mm-hmm.
So say, hey, this Apache web server, if you change this one variable in a config file, it's vulnerable to this,
Okay.
So then, I highly suggest using ExploitDB to figure out what kind of vulnerable VM you want to make.
Right. Okay. Sounds great.
Just change everything from the defaults. Just change it to the opposite of what it came as, and maybe it'll be less secure.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those exploits on ExploitDB have an explanation as to why the application is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So then you just go through and you just set that application up with those exact variables needed for it to be vulnerable.
Right. So
it doesn't always have to be an OS vulnerability. It can be an application vulnerability.
Right. Yeah, I was actually trying to download like Debian 7 with like the oldest kernel possible, so that I knew it would have things like dirty cow in it, or it would have, certain CVE numbers or whatever, so that, and then have like a minor minor vulnerabilities that would eventually get you to root, so that, if you're a hardcore, user of tools, you'd be like, oh, okay, it's a vulnerable to DerbyCon. I could just boom and get in and get root automatically. Or, if I've got to go the long way around, then I find this, vulnerability that gives me local privilege escalation to a super user, which then would give me root, which would then give me X or something like that, or it's a web app that, has cross-site scripting or a SQL injection. I use the SQL injection to execute commands as, DBA, which then allows me to escalate privileges to root and get that. I was trying to figure out how to do it that way, but then I was like, man, that takes a lot of time to do, at least in my limited skill set to do. So I was just trying to figure out if there was a better way of doing it. But yeah, it sounds like I was either halfway there with the exception of using an old ass OS. So that's good to know. So yeah, there's other things, some of our moderators are getting in on it. We're thinking about doing like PCAP challenges or, some logic stuff as well. So, it's going to be fairly interesting. It's definitely going to be a little different than last year. So I know Miss Berlin's thinking about how to do some things, and Mr. Betcher's got some ideas as well. So yeah. So
I could do it again this year.
Yes, that's part of the fun. Remember?
And don't worry, our CTF is not intimidating.
Oh no,
it's not.
We're already intimidated.
I really tried to make it difficult, and I just didn't.
Well,
question though, in the Castle v Castle, do you limit the types of tools that you can use to defend, or is it a free for all?
Free for all.
So you include even DOS tools, like if somebody wanted to use DOS tools against them.
So I would allow DOS, because if that scorebot is trying to reach out and get that token and that web application can't respond, then they are successfully not defending their asset.
Right. Okay.
And the whole point of the Castle v Castle is how well can you defend your asset?
Right. No, that makes sense. All right. So the one last tick we've got here before we go, it says biggest downfalls of CTF development. What is the biggest downfall of CTF development?
Going at it alone. Not relying on team members.
I got 6 people helping me. Woo! Yeah. All right.
And not finding reliable team members. There's lots of individuals who I've come across in the InfoSec sphere who you say, hey, I want to do this project. And they're like, yeah. Let me do this project with you. I'm super stoked. Let's do it. And then 6 months down the road, it's you doing all the work because you created this huge scope for the project, and the other individuals didn't want to do any of the work with you.
That's like group projects in high school. It's the same thing over and over and over again throughout adulthood.
It is. And also, don't think that you are a powerhouse and can do everything yourself in a small time frame. That's another one of the big downfalls of CTF developments.
Right.
I've seen people that are like, yeah, I'm going to do this all by myself. I'm going to do this amazing CTF. It's going to be massive because they have a massive ego. And then it just ends up floundering because they didn't want to rely on any kind of team members.
Yeah, I know that like the DerbyCon CTF has already been worked on like a year in advance. We've got like 6 weeks. So, you get what you're not paying for or whatever in this case. We were just trying to do something quick and dirty. So we're hoping that it's enjoyable by the people who are doing it, and actually, get some fun out of it. Does it, Mr. Betcher, Ms. Berlin, do you have any other questions for Raymond before we go?
Nope.
Not that I can think of.
Could we maybe pick your brain before we do these things? Maybe just ask questions because, it would be helpful. I know we don't have much to pay you. We have some M&Ms and stuff we could pay you at Derby, but
Amanda has a hard line to me, so like she could just like. Yeah, she has a big red phone that she just picks up.
Like, pick up the red phone, yeah.
Yeah, and the big red phone comes like right to my office.
Very nice. Okay. We may just want to pick your brain for like, suggestions or, things, but I mean, we appreciate you, volunteering your assistance to us, for how much ever it is. You can, just for that, you can come sit at our table with us and babysit us.
That's what I like to do.
Yeah,
I'll bring whiskey and just sit at your table.
Oh, yes.
Hassle people as they come by. Like, this was my payment.
That's all we're doing.
You bring the whiskey, I'll bring the Coca-Cola, and then we'll be great. So.
Oh yeah. I'll bring the ice.
There you go. All right. So, Raymond, if people wanted to, get a hold of you for potential CTF events, I'm sure you will travel to them. If you wanted to do like a CTF, how would they go about getting a hold of you to do that?
They can contact me on Twitter at CyDefe. And I also have a contact form on my website, CyDefe.com.
Okay.
Or CyDefe, as some people like to call me, So
you have that problem. We have a problem with people telling us we've spelled breaking wrong.
Yeah.
So
I did the CyDefe thing earlier. So that was.
So feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or on my contact form on my website.
Right on. Excellent. Thank you, sir. Ms. Berlin, you going to be speaking anywhere in the near future?
Thank God.
You're done. You're done for the year.
My June was a disaster, so I'm done. Oh, yes, I'm speaking at Diana Initiative at DEF CON.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. Yeah,
probably maybe DerbyCon. I don't know. So yeah, probably.
Maybe DerbyCon. What do you mean? Oh,
maybe.
Did you submit a CFP?
Talks to DerbyCon and a workshop.
Oh, yeah. That ended. As of July 1st, we've got another 3 hours, and then it'll be over with. So 2 hours. So it's already over. If you're listening to this by now.
EST. So we have an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you got an hour and 20 minutes. So sorry, you're too late. Mr. Betcher, if people wanted to discuss, things that you like to do, like LogMD or whatever, how would they go about finding you and doing that?
Well, if you want to meet me in person, I will be at DerbyCon. I'll be at DEF CON, B-Sides Las Vegas, maybe Black Hat if I can score some tickets. And
you didn't tell me you were going to Vegas.
With the peeps. Excuse me?
You didn't tell me you were going to Vegas. What's up with that?
Yeah, I definitely going there, provided some tragedy doesn't happen and the plane goes down or whatever. But
I rented my scooter for DEF CON.
All right, little rascal scooter, zoom.
Oh yeah.
Now the B-Sides bus is really awesome. That was a great idea. I rode that a lot.
Okay.
From con to con, right?
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I got a question. So you said the flags inside the next 7 or 8. You don't mean that literally, right? Episode?
What?
Oh, yeah. Well, there may or may not be flags in the upcoming podcasts. So,
literally in them?
Maybe.
In them?
Maybe.
On them? Yeah.
On them, in them?
Yes.
We might speak in code.
Yes. Yeah. Just like that.
Yeah.
Watch him try to reverse that.
So,
it doesn't say anything.
If you want to get a hold of me virtually, you can go to log-md.com and figure out how.
Excellent.
Also, check out those cat videos. Wow. Like dressed as a cat while driving without a seatbelt explaining DNS.
Oh, that doesn't sound safe.
Just imagine that.
He's not wearing a seatbelt?
He's not wearing a seatbelt.
I actually talked to him about that, and he's like, I don't know why everybody keeps getting on my case about the no seatbelt.
Well, when I was a kid, I didn't wear a seatbelt either.
Right.
So, but then there was that law.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't when I was like teen-ish years, and my boyfriend almost flipped the truck that we were in. So then I've worn one ever since.
Yep. Yeah, it's like second nature to me. I go in, I just click and done. So yeah.
Yeah, you feel like you're missing something now.
Yeah, you feel naked. Yeah. That and my car keeps going bing, bing, bing every time I don't have mine running. So.
Oh yeah, and my radio shuts off too. So.
That's how they get you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Anyway.
So that's why I like the car hacking stuff, so I could figure out how to shut that off.
So life lesson: either learn how to hack your car or put your seatbelt on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, you know how you have that backup camera? Well, I want that thing on all the time. So I see, you know, how close the cars are behind me and stuff.
You just want to turn it on all the time?
I'll tell you something.
Why can't I turn that on all the time?
In my car, if you just shift it into reverse, it will come on when it's on. When I'm driving down the highway.
Wait, what?
My stick shift in my car is not really a stick shift. It's just an electronic, thing. And I have shifted accidentally into reverse when I'm driving down the highway. And only thing that happens is the backup camera comes on. Because
we don't recommend this officially.
Please don't try that at home or while you're driving. But yeah, that has,
throwing your 87 something into reverse on the highway.
You've got to be going slow enough for the electronic transmission to put it in reverse. Otherwise it won't. So it's not like you've got a stick shift, 4 on the floor where you grind it till you find it or whatever. So yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so let's get this done with. So I'm on Twitter at BrakeSec, BRAKESEC, personally at Brian Brake, BRYAN BRAKE. We have a humongously popular Slack, thanks to a couple of people tweeting things out. We've gained over 1,300 followers on there, 500 active accounts, a lot of people, a lot of things going on there.
Amazing.
Thanks to Miss Megan and Mr. Scott and Mr. David. They all run different facets of our Slack. They're moderators. Mr. David's running our book club and our summer book club with American Kingpin, which is a book that we're reading. Basically, you read the book in the month, and then the fourth Tuesday of every month, we go over it and review the book. So we're doing that for the next 3 months, different book every month. We also are doing Practical Packet Analysis 3rd edition, Chris Sanders' book. Really great book, and I think we're doing it every 2 weeks. So if you want to join that, you can do that for a technical book discussion. CTF Club's coming back online. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago to go over the Hack the Box stuff. Talking to some of the moderators on Hack the Box to see about getting access to private Hack the Box instances, which is great.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I know, right? So like a retired box would necessarily not go retired for us, which we may or may not pay a premium for. I'm not sure. We'll figure that out in a little bit. But please hit us up if you're interested in any of the things we're doing on Slack. We have a ton of channels, job board. We have a log and sim channel, which apparently we have some CEOs of a company on there that does logging or something. I don't know what their names is. They're in Sweef. They're over in the Nordic countries.
And if you're a manager, we have a management channel.
We do. We have a leadership channel, a management channel. Yeah, that's a good one. So, you can DM us on Twitter at BrakeSec, or you can just email bds.podcast@gmail.com. So, before we go, I want to thank Elliot, who upped his Patreon donation, which is very helpful because it's going to pay for some of the swag that we've got going to DerbyCon. If you're a patron of our podcast, please let me know or send me your address on Slack or something, and we can mail you some of the stickers that we got that are limited edition for that. So I'm gonna have to mail some out this week to some people. One in Newfoundland, in Canada, way out there. Yeah. So, if you're a patron, thank you for helping us out with that. We appreciate it. And, let me know and we'll send you some stickers. So, we're on Apple, iTunes, podcast, Google Play Store, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio. There's no place you can't find us. So tell a friend, let them know, especially if they're interested in InfoSec or want to get into InfoSec. So, that was it. I'm Brian. Ms. Berlin, Mr. Betcher, thank you. Raymond, thank you for joining us again. You're always welcome to come back and talk about anything offensive related. We love talking about them red team things, I can tell you. So
I've been told I'm pretty offensive before.
You offend me, sir. No, I'm just kidding.
That's why we got along so well.
Aw. That's nice.
Y5.
Anyway, yeah. So, yeah, please feel free to come back if you've got any topics you'd like to discuss. I would love to talk more about, pen testing, lateral movement, stuff like that. So if you've got any ideas, please hit us up.
Most definitely.
Right on. All right, that's it for Breaking Down Security. Have a great week, everyone. Be nice to one another, please. And we will talk to you again soon.
Bye.